And
Welcome back
here
to
we
the...
see yet again Dwibs admiring my luscious buster sword.
Anyway,
That he will not be using.
welcome back to Final Fantasy VII, the remake. And we're continuing our dangerous excursion through the corkscrew tunnel to try and sort out that pesky second marker reactor.
Well, technically it's the 5th marker reactor, but it's the second of our journey.
Yeah, but Bob, we have to be careful. If we blow all of them up, there probably won't be... They'll probably run out of power everywhere, and all citizens
That's the idea,
will...
Dwibs.
And all citizens will die as a result of there being no food, because there's nothing to properly prepare the food to make sure it's safe for human consumption, because there's nothing working.
We know thanks to the war map that Calmi is literally a couple of miles away, so...
Not only that, but the alternative would be letting Shinra pump the earth dry to the point where everyone would die.
This, I think in part 1 or part 2, Dwibs, if we let Shinra suck up everything from the planet, no matter how much the population will be at the end, literally everyone will die.
Mm-hmm.
What if those Wu-Tai barbarians kill us before we can get to the new city?
Again, as crappy as it sounds, that would be more preferable to everyone on the entire globe dying.
Oh boy. Anyway, yeah, good news is we have Barrett here to help us out with the
I love how you paused. I love how you paused mid-roast for him.
Yeah,
Well,
that's what.
It happens a lot with Joe.
Yeah.
That's always
how the system works.
I've always loved it when I do that in games. It's always funny.
It's hard for me to say who's my favorite to play as in this game. All the playable characters have a nice variety here. Pedro, what about you?
My favorite to play as is Cloud.
Plan excellence, eh?
What about you, Tio?
Bit tough to choose, but I'll stick probably with Cloud.
Cloud's the best of both
Tifa
worlds.
has the speed to her advantage, but there's the fact that she can be a bit slippery, if that makes any sense.
I see what you mean. Like, she tends to put a lot of oomph into her moves to the point where...
For this purpose of this run, we haven't seen yet how Aerith plays, but it's a bit different from what she did in the original game.
Oh, hello,
Look
materia.
at that. Somebody just happens to leave materia lying around in the
Another
locker
lightning
room.
They always do that, don't they? They're very slippery. Okay, hang on, guys. Sorry. I'll get some potions and music, and then I gotta take a nap on the bench.
Oh, an official theme for Stamp the Dog.
I don't know about you guys, but this theme is my jam. Oh yeah, I'm gonna call
No
this
Blue
one...
Badger theme, I gotta be
Oh
honest.
boy, I got a music trophy.
You could have got this earlier if you actually got any of the discs in the Sector
I've
7.
got it now.
Yes. That's the idea.
You know, as a living legacy, I make it my mission to always respect good music.
Jova, we're not supposed to talk. We haven't gotten to that point yet.
I don't know, we've kind of gotten ahead of a lot of things, like Sephiroth showing up as early as part
is
2.
this like a copyright thing? The world leaving and legacy are copyrighted, and if Cloud doesn't say them, if they say them before a certain point, it's not okay.
Yes.
Again,
Yeah,
Sephiroth kind of threw the rulebook out when he showed up earlier than
Yeah.
planned.
I actually forgot since it actually passed a couple of years at this point.
Also, I gotta say, these are the most easy to move benches and tables I have ever seen. I mean, you could probably blow on them. And...
Yeah,
Objects in this game have ragdoll physics.
and it's amazing to
I
look
love
at.
it.
Just look at them go.
Guys,
It's like Dark Souls all over
Before I
again.
go, I gotta do a little bit. Before I go, I just gotta do a little bit of redecorating.
Oh no. Are you happy now?
Hold on, just gotta rearrange this here and there.
I mean, everything else is messy. It doesn't make sense to me to have one part tidy and the other part messy. I'll just make it all messy and then it'll be complete.
I'm actually surprised that you didn't try slashing it all with the sword. You were actually gentle with it.
Jova, they aren't boxes, remember? Cloud's hatred is boxes, not tables.
And even
Or
then with
benches.
boxes, it
Oh.
seems like he's growing out of that.
Oh, there's even a hunk of junk in the background.
Yeah.
Or what it
I'm
is.
pretty sure
I
it'll be
wonder if
nothing.
that may be usable later.
No, sorry. I just follow the nose of
Hey.
Stamp.
We found another dog. Ew.
It's just a piece of
Tifa,
crap.
Of course it had to activate.
Barrett, please.
Not encourage the robot.
Okay, did we remember to bring the lightning materia, guys?
Yes, we have. So yeah, completed new boss, the Crab Warden.
With a remix of Let the Battles Begin.
Yeah.
If you're fighting this guy on hard mode, make sure you use the elemental materials.
Like I
because-
said, did we remember the lightning materia, guys?
Yes.
Well,
yes,
yeah, that
yes,
one
I
and
did.
the lightning one's combined with the elemental material, so you can absorb a lot of his attacks.
So yeah,
Basically, one of his attacks is that he will basically electrocute a shit ton of the area, so you have to get out of the way and get to the walls. However, if you absorb lightning with a maxed out elemental material, you'll be fine. In fact, it will just be a healing for you. So thanks to you.
Oh, hello, it's staggered. That's cripple his ass.
I bet nobody would have imagined back when 13 came out in the first place that the stagger gauge would be used in a good way.
Well, the problem, Job, is that the stagger gauge in 13.2 is executed horribly, unlike the games that came after it.
What are you talking about? You mean you don't like having to use magic to get the gauge to go up?
Well, I wouldn't mind
Honestly,
doing that. That's kind of how this game works as well. The problem, Job, is that the entire game is basically relying on the stagger gauge, to the point where it's literally impossible to defeat bosses without staggering them. And the way you stagger them is always the exact same way. Just switch between a magical paradigm and then switch back to the commando paradigm, and there you go. That's how you defeat the bosses.
Doesn't-
Whereas with this game, you can
comes-
technically manage to topple a boss without having to stagger
Yeah.
them.
Doesn't
Alright, Ifrit, I need you.
doesn't
becomes
have
this-
to that the bosses of 13 are super spongy.
Yeah, it becomes this process, Jova, where in order to defeat the bosses in 13 and in 13.2, you have to. Every boss literally goes out the exact same way. Switch between one paradigm over and over, and depending on whether or not the enemy is staggered, and it's always the same thing. Whereas in a battle system like this, there's a lot more variety to it, and like you yourself said, the stagger gauge is not super unforgiving, so that you can actually choose how you want to battle for the fucking thing.
Oh,
Look out! He's up to something.
Nah, I don't think we'll beat this thing that easily.
ugh.
Not to mention, Jova, there are certain bosses where even if you manage to take it out slowly, the game will eventually cast doom on you because you're not playing properly. It's one of those cases where the game wants you to play a very specific way and won't allow you to actually, experiment with your mechanics.
Just goes to show that game is
I
a
mean,
hallway
that
in
in
more ways than
itself,
just the
that
story
in-
progression.
That in itself, in a properly studied balanced RPG, wouldn't even a problem. The Megaten franchise runs on this very principle, has run for a long time and has managed to perfect it. The problem with 13 is that you combine that with how the battle system is constructed, it makes it so annoying. 13.2, for its promise, at least has the very minor, to remind mercy that the bosses are less spongy than the one in the first game. But unfortunately, that's like applying a band-aid to a fractured bone.
Not to mention, it also makes up for it by having that one Kyle's boss battle be the most cheapest cheating thing ever, where you can just reset his
Stagger gauge, yeah.
at random with no cost to him whatsoever. But okay, here, let me use this boss battle because it's going through as an example.
Actually, it's already there.
Also,
Yeah, sorry, Pedro.
I can still talk about it regardless. It doesn't need to be on screen.
go on.
Hold on, let me wait for the cutscene to finish.
There you go. Heidegger
We've got
did
more
foreshadow.
Heidegger stuff.
Heidegger did foreshadow that this was like an old prototype, so that's why it was also not 100% peak condition.
Oh, crap, sorry, my TV.
Dwibs, you just broke the game.
Ah, here we are.
Well,
Those, and then Heidegger cuts Heidegger
Okay, I've
angrily
never-
shaking his fist. Avalanche.
Okay, question. This theme playing now, I keep forgetting the name of it.
Shinra's theme.
It's the Shinra HQ theme.
Alright, okay.
No, sir. All
Oh, that means something else. Did it?
This isn't how the
Okay.
script said it was supposed to go.
Wow, for once Heidegger is not lashing to the soldiers.
Weird.
He's trying some anger management.
Mate, get off your phone. You're working.
Actually,
Oh,
yeah,
boy.
it's that mate Dwibs is responsible for giving the cell phone to Heidegger. He's that lazy.
Yeah, Heidegger should pick up the bloody phone himself.
Everything is going according to plan, sir.
Peachy keen.
Doesn't that seem a bit weird, though, guys? It's almost a little...
That
too-
face tells everything. Mild annoyance.
Isn't that interesting, though, guys? Things are going rather well for Avalanche. A little too well.
Yeah, it's too easy.
Again, if it weren't for this one thing, it would be a lot harder for them to enter than it would have been in the original game.
Should you fail to do so,
You will be executed.
deal with our intruders.
Ah,
I'm sure we just want some TNB skits.
I love this.
Technically, execution, yeah.
Don't worry.
You know what? I love
I'm
this.
sure you do.
You know what? I love this. The mooks are actually competent about this. Like, they know they don't have a shot against the main protagonist, so the main boss here is using having to face the intruders as punishment, because you pretty much know you're not coming out of that unscathed when you're a mook.
That's what we said,
Alive.
execution.
Passages beyond these shipping containers.
Oh, but sure, maybe our heroes will take mercy on them.
Oh, that
but yeah,
especially
think-
Barrett.
Yes, Pager?
But yeah, think about the boss that Dwibs just defeated. Notice how Dwibs didn't really care much about hitting the legs first. Yeah, he did do it, but he wasn't exactly focusing entirely on it. He just mostly hit the main body, and you ended up beating it because if this was a 13-1 or 13-2 boss, Dwibs would have been forced to destroy all 4 legs before he can even attack the
Yeah,
main
like
body.
with,
What
like
about
with,
Lightning?
like
What
with
about Lightning
Bartan
Returns?
Ledus.
Well, Lightning Returns, fortunately, Tri-Ace gave us a much better battle system for that.
Basically, Dibs, here's the thing. Better battle system, but they still managed to make Lightning Returns the worst of the trilogy.
Well, it's because the only good thing about it is the battle system. Literally everything else is garbage. Literally everything else. It's
I thought you
literally
said I thought you said you liked the music.
Oh no, yeah, that is true. Yeah, I do love the music Lightning Returns. Yes, that is true.
I will say this, though. I have noticed that there are definitely some musical cues in this game that remind me of the
Also-
13 trilogy.
Also, I might as well start.
Same composer.
So here's the thing: in the original game, Barrett just opens up like a trapdoor and the characters jump inside. In here, they decided to be cute and instead reference the elevator that you get in Junon.
Nice.
That's the primary difference for 13 and 13-2. The gameplay is actually flexible and it allows the player to play and experiment and play according to his own personal sensibilities, rather than forcing the player to play it in the exact same specific style that the developers intended. Otherwise, we'll just fucking kill you.
The reason, one other thing
Anyway,
that
chapter
light in the
6.
way.
Light the way. Oh,
Actually,
God,
yeah, I'll let the
Lightning
characters
Day.
explain, because this dungeon, well, they have to actually traverse the next section in a particular way.
Oh, yeah, this dungeon.
I know Lightning does not debut in this chapter.
Straight on to reactor 5.
Good.
We're basically in the space between
Okay.
the plate and the slums.
Only 'cause it is.
Okay. Lightning as written by Toriyama.
True, there's been a good point, Shiro, because Lightning, when written by not Toriyama, is actually pretty cool.
I'm sorry, I'm only used to her being written by Tom.
I really should record this CD
Well,
at
there's
some
the
point.
there's the
Yeah.
Cities 2 and 3.
And World of Final Fantasy, she's also great in that.
We cut through
Doesn't she kind of get pummeled in that game, though?
A cargo platform.
Well, but it makes sense in context. though.
Sometimes it's also the point to draw.
So anyway,
Hell, World of Final Fantasy managed to make the romance between Tidus and Yuna believable. That's a miracle in my eyes.
we got a
Speaking of romance, we have a date with a reactor.
Jova, I don't ship Cloud X Reactor.
But yeah,
There's somebody out there who
But
does.
anyway, but
That is
first
gonna
of
fuck
all,
the
No.
reactor.
rest,
first of all,
yes.
Cloud, you literally just sat down 10 minutes ago.
Well, I
you
have
just
found.
faced a giant robot. Come
You
on.
see, Dwibs, I've been doing some research here, and I've realized in my research that park benches have the amazing ability to restore HP and MP.
Cloud, you're a bloody soldier.
It's the
But
difference.
yeah,
Hey, just
you-
because I'm
you're
a soldier
actually-
doesn't mean I don't study my.
We're actually pretty close
surroundings.
to the giant lamps that provide light to the entirety of the slum sections of Midgar.
Yeah, it's one of those things where
Hope you aren't afraid of heights.
the big difference, Dwibs, is that in Lightning Returns, there's not a stagger gauge, there's a stagger wave. Basically, what you have to do is you have to keep a good. Well, actually, hold on. There's gonna be a cutscene now.
I actually like this because this is good foreshadowing for when Cloud's going to take a bit of a fall to meet our other leading lady.
Oh, boxes.
Yeah.
Dwibs, question: did you do all
Yeah.
the side quests in Chapter 8?
Yes.
And then you did go for the Whack-a-Box minigame. That would be the perfect way for Cloud to finally get all the frustrations.
Oh, power's out.
Needs power, I think.
It's like the game was.
Yeah.
It's like the game that I was predicted you would give Cloud this trait.
Guess what? Shinra is so incompetent that it's not giving actual maintenance to this very important section of the city that actually
Okay, so
should
what-
require fucking maintenance.
So what we have to do is that we have to go across this section and switch off stuff that doesn't really need to
Well-
be switched on, so we can generate power to the doors.
Well, Tail, maybe that's why their president ended up fucking dead. I mean, I guess he just did a terrible job.
How did Midgar manage to be constructed in the first place with this incompetence?
Maybe it was like the president before the current president of Shinra.
Yeah, maybe it was
Yeah.
the Shinra from 2010 too.
You know-
yeah,
you know-
sure.
Don't
You know,
worry,
Tail-
Tail. I'm sure Rufus will make Shinra great again.
You know-
Absolutely.
you
Hold
know-
on, actually, Joe. They're explaining now.
You know, Tia, that's actually a good point, though. Out of all the games we've gotten for the Final Fantasy VII compilation, you'd think we'd have gotten a game about the
Hold on,
origins of
Jova.
Midgar.
Java?
Kill the lights, we three
I
are
can't
gonna
see
go
you.
to the gate and other stuff.
Sun lamps. You think these are the
Pipe
suns?
Suns.
The closest
Actually, yeah, because it makes sense. Oh,
Gotta put out a sun just to open a gate, huh?
But if we go through with it,
yeah.
Grounders and
But yeah, it also makes sense with the title that my version actually got. The sun, when the sun goes down.
Don't like to do it, but we gotta. Well,
Honestly, we're just depriving on a source of light the slums. I'm pretty sure that aside from the people who actually venture the most infested area, we'd be fine.
are important.
Yeah, but like I was saying, basically in Lightning Returns you don't have a stagger gauge, you have a stagger wave. And the stagger wave, unlike the gauge, works in a way of damage rhythm. What does that mean? It means, let's say the boss is weak to lightning. You cast lightning on the boss, and the stagger wave increases in size. And you have to keep that up and try to cast as much lightning at a good rhythm and make sure the stagger wave doesn't decrease in size. Eventually, when it increases to enough size, the enemy will stagger, and you'll be able to do this. So basically, it's more about rhythm of battle.
If only that a better interface.
Yeah, the interface is not the best. I will agree with that.
but yeah, like I was.
for how the mechanic was not used well in the previous games, an actual bar actually was a more good indication. The stagger wave is more like a thing that appears only occasionally when you manage to hit it correctly.
But yeah, like I was saying, it's surprising to you. Of all the games we got in the 7 compilation, none focused on, the origins of Midgar. You think we would have gotten something along the lines of that.
If I recall correctly, the song probably lines in this remake starts telling that well, it was built by a collective will from the people, brick by brick, and all that shit.
But guys, you don't need that. Do you know why?
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 Because I can tell you.
No, please.
No, please.
Don't
I'm good.
worry. Don't worry.
All
it'll be
right,
short.
all right. Let's humor him. What do you got?
Okay, so once upon a time, there was a piece of land that while fertile hadn't been used in decades. But then the president of an upstart company called Shinra had an idea. Why don't we build a giant mechanical city on this bit of fertile land and milk it dry for all it's worth? So they did. Unfortunately, partway through construction and partway through showing the Shinra president that tour, he tripped and fell into a pool of Marco and died. And so they had to find a replacement rather quickly. And hence we ended up with the president who kept making all these incompetent decisions.
So
But then
oh.
because of said incompetency in placing in sorting out the power, he touched something and got electrocuted and died then, and that's how we got the president we have today.
So it's kind of a mixture of LexCorp and Raccoon City, where essentially the big business model is the one who helps make the city the way it is.
But it also killed the guy who created it.
Yeah.
Alright, so we can't get through a certain way. Although there is there's something I might fancy a bit later on.
But yeah, no, Joe, but Theo was right. Basically, later on when you get to the Shinra Corporation, there's literally a tourist guide thingy that basically tells you the entire history.
Actually, you already start getting a snippet when you get to the wall market, because I think Eric actually tell you briefly about the fact that its origin when the city was built. Materia.
Materia.
That's true, Theo, but
Actually, I haven't got, but no. But hold on.
Don't.
Here we go. Basically, later on, there's going to be literally a video presentation on how basically. It's even a CGI cutscene and everything.
Do I dare try and jump for it?
Do I don't rub it in?
I know the solution. Toss Barrett.
No.
This isn't Crash Twin Sanity, Theo.
No,
I don't know. Tifa could be strong enough.
No, Shinra. The way it works is that in order to get past Shinra security, they get some tourist key cards to pretend that they're tourists, so they go on the tourist guide tour, because Shinra has a tourist guide tour where they teach tourists about how the way Shinra works, how the life works, and how Midgard was built and all that shit. So basically, the game also takes advantage of that to explain the lore to you.
But Jova, Barrett can't teleport on my Cortex.
Jova?
You see, Jova. You see, Dwibs, this is exactly the. Hold on. Do you want me to wait for? Hold on. I'll wait till this. I'll wait till this is over.
We could always do another lap.
Go for 10.
Yeah, the layout itself can be a bit confusing at first, but you can get used to it. Barrett, come on, move.
Barrett.
Along the wall.
Yeah, along the wall.
It a try? It might not work out, but it's the only idea I've got.
It's not a bad
Hey,
one.
just as long as it doesn't end with me falling several stories down into a church, I'm a-okay with it.
Yeah, I got news for you, buddy. But anyway, no, that's exactly the thing. But that's exactly it, Shirai. It's a visual show, don't tell thing. Because basically, Dwibs, that video presentation that we're gonna get explaining the lore, if Toriyama was indeed directing the game and being in charge of directing the game, we would have a data log instead, and we have to read reams of text.
Or a narration that won't shut up.
So yeah, we would have Cloud have this really boring monologue narration.
Shinra will be putting out a Tannoy announcement just explaining everything.
You know, I just thought of something. If they were trying to go for the, if in 13 they were trying to go for the, trying to do 7 story but with some tweaks, maybe, I don't know, for some reason I kept thinking maybe if they should have waited until the number in the Final Fantasy title had doubled from 7. It's like they just gave up. They couldn't wait for 14, so they made it 13.
Well, here's the
13
thing,
is a pretty unlucky number.
Well, here's the thing, Dwibs. The developers did say in the check RRPG reviews is retrospective on Final Fantasy. It's the best retrospective on Final Fantasy ever. He literally covers every single thing. He doesn't leave any stone unturned. Just to give you an idea, his retrospective on the Lightning Return, on the Lightning Trilogy, is literally 2 hours long because he talks about everything, the development of it, every little thing.
What's the channel called? Check our RPG?
Double R. RPG reviews. Okay, and by RPG, I mean RPG with 2 R's.
RPG reviews.
Anyway, you were saying?
I was saying. Let me just finish this. He talks about the development of these games, so you can get all this information from him. But yeah, the reason the developers did say during the development that they wanted to make a game in the style of 7. The problem is, by that they meant in terms of the visual style, because he went back to the same kind of, not sci-fi, but more fantasy steampunk combo that this game has.
Also, very, very similar plot points and characters too.
However, the actual theme of the story is about people defying fate rather than environmental.
Yeah.
Keep moving.
Yeah.
Okay then. Follow me.
All right,
Okay.
here we go.
Now,
So-
I will finally be able to get that materia.
Oh, be careful, Cloud. All your gel will move away from your hair.
My hair's actually natural. A lot of people think it's gel, but it's actually natural. Fun
And
fact,
Cloud, stop looking at Tifa's.
I'm pretty sure he's not.
I'm pretty sure he's not.
I
He
am
has his
not.
hand- he
This
has
is
his
from the perspective where my camera was. It looked like it.
Well, Dwibs, you have control of the camera.
Oh,
You can
what's
change
that? What, have you saw something, Tifa?
it. Yes.
he.
She.
Not to mention Dwibs.
I think you mean
right
she
now-
has, Pedro.
Whatever.
Whatever, slip of the tongue. Yeah.
Not to mention, we're in the middle of something. This is not the time for, it's there. It's there. Just go along with it.
Couple seconds, maybe. 3 tops.
Now, where's that materia?
There's that
Oh.
damn materia.
Don't worry, we'll get there.
But yeah,
He's
one
got
thing,
big
that
eye.
Dwibs didn't show because he actually had to move the camera prompt. There is that. There is a particular materia behind one of those propelling fans.
And that's our
Yeah,
objective.
and
Well-
on hard mode,
Cargo platform.
and on hard mode, it becomes one of
Pretty sure
Tifa's
that's the one.
manuscripts that gives you extra XP.
Oh,
However, they are giant fans, so I'd rather not.
It's
Oh.
possible to get them.
it was actually a summon materia, Dwibs.
Biggs was talking about.
Don't worry, I'll get another summer material later on.
But you'll
Yeah.
never be able to get that particular one now.
Actually, he can still.
Yeah, with the chapter selects, but
Well, yeah, with
Oh.
the chapter select,
No,
but
no,
in
no,
regards
no, I
to
mean
this
even by
playthrough.
that. No, I mean even by the context. No, technically, no. Technically, he hasn't even. Technically, doesn't even have the ability to get to it.
let me check.
He has
Let
to
me
first
check
turn
here.
on. He has to first turn on free sun lamps before he can actually go through the specific elevator that takes him to the area where it will allow him to get the Chocobo and Moogle material that
I
Sarah was
thought-
talking about.
Yeah, I thought that bit at the end where they say, "Hang on, have you got everything?" felt a bit odd.
Okay. So,
Well, I mean, okay, it's a. Unfortunately, sometimes in playthroughs you can kind of miss stuff. Especially when to me it just looked like I thought. To me, when I heard that, I thought the context was. I thought Tifa thought she saw something, but just brushed it off as just like a bit of hallucination.
Basically,
Or,
word of advice, Dwibs, always check back, especially when it feels like you're
Well, I
doing
couldn't.
something for something that was opened up later.
You could
on.
actually move the camera in that section.
well, I tried to move the. I'm pretty sure I tried to move the camera, but it wouldn't let me.
Anyway,
move
check that,
properly.
Pedro. No, it is technically not missable, so I take that with chapter select. You can get it before it
No, I mean,
becomes.
no, I get that too. Of course, you can use chapter select to get anything you
Oh,
miss.
I
What
thought
mean-
you said that if you use chapter select efficiently in the game, it becomes instead the Tifa
No,
manuscript.
no. What I meant is to he can still like in the context of his current playthrough before he gets chapter select, he can still go. But he technically hasn't even gotten to the point where he can get the Chocobo and Moogle material because he has to turn on the sun lamps
True.
first to turn on the elevators. So that's why I said technically, at this exact point that we're commenting on, technically Dwibs doesn't miss that material yet. We already know that
Although
misses
he
it because
is
he
going
just
to
told
miss
us.
it, though.
Well, yeah, but technically he hasn't missed it yet. Technically, at this point in the video, he has yet to even be able to get it. So,
Semantics.
semantics, yeah.
So, riddle me this, guys. So, I get that nobody usually comes down here often, but why the hell did somebody put a vending machine here?
Because they were really thirsty.
Well, but let me put it like in this specific nutshell, Dwibs. To give you a basic idea, by the time they were like 80% done with Final Fantasy XIII, the first one, Nomura was the one who actually turned to Toriyama and asked, you should at some point decide how this game feels and what our game is actually going to be like. Because that's how messy the development was. You know.
Are you talking about the first 13 game or of Lightning Returns?
The first game. Well, the first game's development was very messy. Again, check out that RRPG's reviews retrospective. He pretty much tells all of it in a very very well structured documentary type of way, so you can easily get all that knowledge that you want.
Mm-hmm.
Let me get this actually. Might as well.
Well, okay, yeah. The point is, Square had a very messy 2010, as we've established.
Well,
they had a very messy 7th generation, let's call it.
The 2009 all the way through 2013 period.
And trust me.
Before Matsuda came on to restructure the company, unfortunately, it's thanks to him. It's thanks to him that Tomoya Azano has his own team making all those classic Final Fantasy style games.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing. From 7th gen, the best Final Fantasy game to come from that was a relaunch of one that was allegedly even worse than 13.
Wow.
Well, the original 14. The original 14.
One point is that Around Reborn was, technically speaking, one of the first of the big MMOs to actually be launched on a console.
Okay. You talk about Final Fantasy 14, right? I'll admit, I don't always really count that one since, it's not really...
Sorry, Jova. I know that it's easy to do, but the fact remains that it technically is.
Yeah, it is. But
it was released. It was sold at full price. So yeah.
Full price by MMO standards.
Although I do agree that it feels a bit odd because MMOs are naturally better played on a PC by how they're structured.
I think it was Square wanting to capture more of the craze that Final Fantasy XI got them.
Actually, I can test you this, Jova. A couple of my Italian friends that are part of the guild, on 14, actually do play on a PS4, and they report they're actually pretty okay with it.
Oh yeah. Sure. Nowadays, sure, but back then, MMOs were always best played on a PC back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for as terrible as 13 was, at the very least it functioned.
Anyway,
it wasn't completely broken like 14.
Oh yeah.
1.0.
But trust me, Dwibs, 13 and 14 were not the only things going wrong with Square Enix around the time. There was the Dissidia game, which was a letdown to a lot of people.
Wait, what?
It was?
Actually, no, Jova.
Since when?
I'm talking about the one that released around the time. Like a lot of people really
did. Two actually were.
Huh?
None of the two.
None of the two were actually, but the Dissidia games are very well below that actually.
I'm talking about the one back in the day, though. Apparently, people didn't...
I'm
Can I
sorry.
finish? May I?
Well, you better be quick. The part's nearly over.
Right. A lot of people apparently did not care for the fighting structure here. The stages being more often than not, bottomless pits that characters would have to float over here and there. The hazards as well here and there. And the character interactions were apparently lacking to some, and people didn't really care for some of the character interpretations for it as well.
You're really the first person that I heard saying that.
I've never heard any of those complaints. If they're your complaints, that's fine, but I've never heard anyone else say them.
No.
I'm going off of what I've heard and what I've seen.
Well, anyway, see you for the next part.
Yeah, where we continue trying to turn out the lights and increasing our chances of not being able to see where we're going, tripping up and falling into these slums and dying from a great height.
Mm-hmm.
See ya.
See ya.
See ya.